In the Baltic States, near the border with Russia, the information war is raging on like never before.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима.
Мы не видим возможности признавать демократическим правительство, которое угнетает и применяет методы геноцида к своему собственному народу.
It's a trap. Don't trust Russians. Don't trust them. They're deceivers and liars. Everything what they say is a lie.
Causing confusion is a mighty weapon, and propaganda is a tried and tested war strategy.
Опасности, которые режим Зеленского представляет для соседних стран и международной безопасности в целом, существенно возросли, связанные с планами обретения собственного ядерного оружия.
In 5 years, we never seen the scale as we see now. It is just crazy.
Every little piece of puzzle, every asset they can use, they're using.
For years now, Lithuania has been waging war on the influx of disinformation and fake news coming from Russia. On this border, NATO has stationed an international force. The tension with Russia is palpable.
According to Russian tactics and doctrines, I mean, war is peace and peace is war. So they have been conducting a war when we thought it was peace. And now they're trying to say, no, there is no war.
The truth is under fire here on a daily basis.
А спецоперация – это как понимать?
Это когда цели ведут к миру. Мы не атакуем жилых домов, мы не бьем по мирным гражданам, мы не уничтожаем социальную инфраструктуру.
Since the invasion of Ukraine, the fear that this information war will turn physical is bigger than ever before. The Russian threat can be felt everywhere.
It hasn't been this close as we experience it now. So now it's kind of right up in our face.
We are in line and we are close in that line. And yeah, that's really, really scary.
It's absolutely around us. So why shouldn't we be next?
How do you combat half and whole lies? How do you protect yourself from Russian propaganda?
Information operations is a serious thing. It's not something that should be ignored.
Yeah, you have to fight back with truth, you know.
This is Backlight. Welcome in a world where truth is a weapon. In Lithuania, on the border with Russia, the information war has been raging for years. Resisting disinformation has been the order of the day here for a long time. The independent think tank, Debunk, investigates all the disinformation to make the country more resilient. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, this team has been at the highest state of readiness to dismantle disinformation about the invasion as quickly as possible.
I was able to do it through Georgia. Now it doesn't seem to be working. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, VPN is the best option for that. NordVPN doesn't give you Russian servers. I wonder why.
If you need, I can.
Oh, really?
Yes. Okay, let's see. Now I think I'm connected. Yes, through Moscow. And you can pick Moscow.
Because we could check
St. Petersburg.
what's actually working in Russia and what's not.
Right.
Because now it's super weird. It changes every day.
On Russian TV, they're saying that Vladimir Putin went and waged war on Nazis in Ukraine, which is just not true. But this is what they're saying. RT is one of the prominent Russian state media outlets. The other one is TASS. For example, here it says that Kiev is refusing to open humanitarian corridors, which were proposed by Russia. And yeah, they show the victories of Russian army. So here it says that they destroyed 2,396 objects of military equipment in Ukraine, Just now he called that military in Mariupol city, they had a clash with Ukrainian nationalists. So they're not calling them, for example, Ukrainian army, Ukrainian armed forces. It's Ukrainian nationalists. That's the narrative that's being used by the government.
And you maybe notice also how they struggle. They call it surgical strikes. They talk about a very, very precise and very narrow use of force for very specific targets in Donetsk and Luhansk. But then you have articles like these that talks about 2,396 military objects destroyed. So there is, on the one hand, this very triumphalist narrative, but they somehow try to combine it with the narrative that it's all very, very targeted and very precise, and we're not, killing civilians and so on. So the two things are obviously contradictory. When you build a narrative that is based on lies and disinformation, it becomes really, really difficult to keep track of what you have been saying. And inevitably you end up with this kind of contradictory statements and this kind of illogical, really, analysis of reality, like in this article.
Žiūrėk, kokių pinigų čia atnešiu.
Pilietinis pasipriešinimas?
Čia pažiūrėk, čia visi tankai, ginklai.
Geras projektas.
Pažiūrėk, čia žiauriai kietai.
Kulkosvaidžiai. O, ir tankai, žiūrėk, yra.
It's a way to recognize Russian tanks and military equipment and the guns that they're using, the heavy artillery, planes, and everything.
And why do you need that?
To analyze videos. How to recognize everything, what's happening if you cannot recognize what's what. So when you watch in these online videos, you need to detect whose military equipment is that. Is it Russian? Is it Belarusian? Is it Ukrainian? And they have some of the equipment similar, but a lot of it is actually different. It is crisis. It is a huge crisis. Now it's a European crisis. It's not just a problem in Ukraine, all of Europe.
And do you feel like the disinformation attacks have increased as well?
Dramatically. In 5 years, we never seen the scale as we see now. It is just crazy. In Kremlin's controlled media, the world is portrayed as an absolute parallel universe that has nothing to do with the truth.
A number of attempts at opening humanitarian corridors to date have ended in failure. The next is expected to be made in 5 Ukrainian cities, including the country's capital, today. One of those areas people are desperate to flee from is Mariupol, in the country's southeast, where the situation really is grueling. The Russian Defense Ministry recently commented on the situation in the city, claiming militants were using terrorist tactics.
Nationalists open fire on all civilians who try to leave their homes. People are forced to paint on the walls and doors of houses. Don't shoot. There are children here.
И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины, а также преданию суду тех, кто совершил многочисленные кровавые преступления против мирных жителей, в том числе и граждан Российской Федерации.
They're just blowing out of the proportion the Nazi, for example, the Nazi narrative. So they're taking a far right march in, let's say, Kiev with 100, 200 people, but they put this in a sort of context to make it seem that the whole of Ukraine is like this.
And why are they doing that?
To just, to legitimize the conflicts, to give ground to the explanation that Russia needs to go help people in Donetsk and Luhansk who are being oppressed by Nazi regime in Kiev. That's the narrative. They had to ensure public support for this, because without public support, in the end of the day, the military won't go. The military also has to believe that they're doing this for the right cause, whatever the right cause is.
Just imagine of these in occupied territories, they are just bringing full buses of pro-Russian people who will cheer that they got liberated. How crazy is that?
Vladimir Putin has signed a decree recognizing the Donetsk and Lugansk republics as sovereign states.
So they are creating these propaganda videos and bringing people, then sharing, creating fireworks, and showing this then to Russian citizens that they got liberated Ukrainians from some kind of Nazis. What kind of parallel universe is that?
There are also claims that fighters from nationalist battalions use people as human shields.
Нас используют как живой щит. Наши же украинские военные.
Используют как живой щит, наверное, возьмем так.
These are the Russian military going on a special military operation in Kiev district. The brave Russian soldiers going to help liberate Kiev from Nazis, as they're saying. Now with the advancing technology and the scale of how easy you can reach target audiences, like there were TikToks, where sponsored TikToks where Russian TikTokers read from the paper that, like this is military operation, we're helping Ukraine, we're liberating Ukraine. Every little piece of puzzle, every asset they can use, they're using.
Интернет в цвете уже давно стали средством информационной войны.
Она уже больше 10 на Донбассе. За время войны погибли сотни невинных детей. Вот уже на протяжении целых 8 лет. Освободительная операция РФ — это вынужденная мера.
The impact made from the tank, you can see with your own eyes. It's really clear. It's a hole in the ground. It's dead people on the street. With disinformation, you don't see the impact right away. You only then, when the people refuse to go and protest Putin's regime, then you realize the scale.
But it's just as impactful.
I think so. I believe so. Just looking at the legislation which is being passed in Russia in the last 5 years, let's say, it was getting tougher and tougher and tougher for independent press to work there. And now, with these new legislations being passed, as I've mentioned, that if you say that Russia started a war in Ukraine, you can get up to 15 years of jail.
But why has the scale of propaganda?
Well, because they have to keep up, like Russian and the Kremlin, they have to keep up the image that they've created over the years. Because if they don't keep it up, then if the public in Russia get the glimpses of truth, then they will go to the streets in way larger numbers, because now people are going to the streets in Russia, but we're seeing them getting detained immediately and quite brutally.
For a long time now, the Baltic states have lived in the fear that the Russians will go beyond propaganda and digital attacks. That's why, in 2004, NATO stationed an international force here, at some 100 kilometers from the border. Since the invasion of Ukraine, everything has started to shift, and the need for its presence has only increased.
Many of the countries that are participating and supporting the operations here in Lithuania has increased their presence. We see both the Air Force has doubled in Šiauliai, in the northern part of Lithuania. The Americans in bombarded is getting reinforcements in as well. And here in Ourikh, the German-led EFP battle group has brought its reinforcements in, which actually has increased the unit strength with 50% from 1,000 to 1,500 soldiers here. And even more reinforcements might be on its way as we speak. So something has happened here as a response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Right now we're actually also moving a bit further now in preparing to defend this place. NATO is revising all its plans and putting reaction forces on a higher state of alert. So everything is kind of gearing up. The headquarters are starting also to be more operational, getting ready to make operations here should that be needed. The Lithuanians are really worried about what's happening, and finally, I would say the rest of Europe also has woken up to this situation and kind of acknowledge what is happening and is reacting to it as well. To what actually these countries, the three Baltic countries, have been saying for the last 10 years, that there is a clear and present danger from Russia. It's so close to us now. It's different when it was far away and we didn't really, okay, what's the truth and the not truth? It hasn't been this close as we experience it now. So now it's kind of right up in our face and we see the pictures from there, and it's in, I mean, I live and work in Vilnius, 30 kilometers from there you have the border to Belarus, and the Russians are attacking from there to Ukraine. So it's so close here. And I think that gives the European also another sense of wake up, hey, what's happening here? This is right at our doorstep now.
Ja, het heeft natuurlijk wel even aan het denken gezet dat het heel snel in één keer kan gaan. Want het was natuurlijk van de een op de andere dag dat ze gewoon besloten om Oekraïne binnen te vallen. En ja, persoonlijk mij heeft het wel even een realiteitsshock gegeven van oké, het kan wel in één keer zomaar gebeuren.
Ja. Ja, toch? Of hadden jullie dat verwacht toen je ooit bij het leger ging, dat het ook echt...
Ja, het is, je gaat het leger in omdat je de vrijheid van mensen zeg maar, wil waarborgen. Dus je kiest er gewoon voor. Alleen dat je dan hier zit en dat gebeurt zeg maar, zoiets. Ja, wat hij zegt, dat brengt je wel aan het denken. Maar aan de ene kant, daarvoor zijn we hier.
En wat zet het je dan aan het denken?
Ja, gewoon dat je een lange tijd van huis weg bent en dat het ook van de ene op de andere dag gewoon kan veranderen. Ja.
Dus dat het ook wel eens fysiek zou kunnen worden?
Ja, daar denk ik wel over na. Ja.
According to Russian tactics and doctrines, I mean, war is peace and peace in war is war. So they have been conducting a war when we thought it was peace. And now they're trying to say, no, there is no war. This is peaceful. This is just a military something adjustment they're doing. So they're playing with this, and they've been doing that very successful until now. So now it's kind of, I think there's a realization in the West that this is another way of war. This is not traditional war. This is things are mixed and different levels, and truth is being attacked all the time, and so we have really to be careful about that. Perhaps we should try to be a bit like them, try to look into hybrid warfare as a kind of an offensive tool and not just being on the defensive side all the time. And I must say I'm very happy to see how the Americans treated this, at least on the media side. We need to stick to the truth, but we could use the truth more offensively. I mean, we could push the truth to the Russian side. I invite every Western NATO countries to come here and see how this frontline nation really is fighting the hybrid war and how they're conducting the organization and everything. It's they have so much experience, and they don't brag about it, but they're really good at it.
For years now, Lithuania has been saying that fighting Russian propaganda should not be left to the media or civilians. The country has taken military measures to protect itself from aggressive untruths. The information invasion is seen as a precursor to tanks waltzing in. Therefore, their Ministry of Defense monitors all media 24/7 for fake news. In this control room, they saw the preparations for the war coming well in advance.
our National Commission on TV and Radio Issues decided to ban the most prominent Russian and Belarus state TV channels because it violates our national law. The warfare is happening not only on land, on air, in the seas, but the warfare is happening in information environment. So it's very important to us as a military institution to be up to date, to observe what is happening, to analyze and understand the aim of the information spread and its purposes and its targets. It shows now to the world what we were saying many years. Our unit is established about 10 years ago, a few years after Russia started its first war in Ukraine. And during all this time, we observed how information warfare was happening, maybe in more, silent way, but now all the world can see how the information warfare is happening together with the real military actions, with the real military invasion inside the country. We see the assessment of Russia's tensions around Ukraine in months before Russia decided to attack, before the February, because we see how the narrative has been changed. We see by the real examples how information environment was being prepared by Russia's and Belarus state media sources to justify the war narrative and to get the support to its action.
You saw it coming in a way.
Yes. We see absolutely correlation and merge of the warfare in informational environment and physical environment. And it means we always saw the reality of Russia's military actions. And then we see that, unfortunately, our observations were right.
So you live in Lithuania?
Yes.
Does it scare you that they invaded Ukraine?
You know, it makes scared every normal people. We have no guarantees that Russia will stop there. Russia will stop in the place it will be stopped. We must be not scared, but we must be aware.
Here we see a video made by Tsarga TV, who is owned by an oligarch that is close to Putin. This video is something that it's just mind-blowing.
Жили-были два друга, Ваня и Коля. Крепко дружили. Ваня защищал Колю, если его кто-то обижал, так как был посильнее.
This campaign started on March the 1st. The Ministry of Education announced that all children from 6 years, so basically from the first grade, need to be educated about Ukraine invasion, or how they call it, special operation, liberation of Ukraine, and so on. So kind of, this is an official decision of Russian Ministry of Education. And they started, like, all the teachers now are being instructed how they need to educate children on this event.
Тут все начали кричать, что Ваня плохой, он дерется с Миколой, а драться плохо. Я же не бью Миколу, а просто отобрал у него палку, чтобы он не обижал ребят, объясняет Ваня. Но его не слышат остальные, потому что Микола очень громко кричит, что его бьют. Примерно такая же история произошла между двумя братскими странами – Россией и Украиной. Многовековую дружбу разрушила история с Донецкой и Луганской областями. Украина начала притеснять русское население, поэтому эти две области захотели отделиться и перейти к России. Украина не согласилась и стала воевать с этими территориями. Россия пыталась остановить убийство людей и решить вопрос мирно. Украина обещала не бомбить больше Донецкую и Луганскую республики, но продолжала это делать. Ни на какие призывы соблюдать мир Украина не реагировала, после чего Россия решила отобрать у Украины оружие. Некоторые страны начали обвинять Россию в том, что она развязала войну. «Я же просто уничтожаю оружие Украины, чтобы его не использовали против Донецка и Луганска», отвечает Россия. Но ее не слышит Запад, потому что Украина всем говорит, что Россия хочет погубить людей.
Incredible. And now there are decisions and instructions to all the teachers in Russia how they need to educate the children in the schools. Some teachers are protesting against that, but now there's this law that if something is communicated different than the government wants, then they might end up up to 15 years in prison. Teachers are very important for kids. Kids cannot learn if they don't trust teachers. And now the teachers that they trust need to provide this content to the kids, which is just a brainwashing. It's an absolute brainwash.
I think we also recognize the pattern because we had this also in Lithuania, when we forced to be in Soviet Union, and when you have children and they go to these pioneer campings and they are joining some pioneer organizations and they are just brainwashing them, and after all, when we've get rid of this Soviet Union when it collapsed and we got our independence, we saw that everything that was there was absolutely lies and not true, and that we were just brainwashed. So what we see now is exactly the same what was happening during the Soviet Union. So that's why it's embarrassing so much.
Does it make you mad?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's unfair and it's not true. So they will live in the parallel universe like we did, and that was painful.
Урок проводится Институтом воспитания при поддержке Министерства просвещения Российской Федерации.
Сейчас все готовы обсуждать новостные сводки из всех источников, давать оценочные суждения, кричать и плакать. Пространство вокруг наполнено эмоциями. Но сколько людей, столько и мнений. Очень важно не заблудиться.
How many people, that many opinions.
Для этого нужно понять, что все немного сложнее, чем может показаться. А события сегодняшнего дня берут свое начало задолго до нашего рождения. И тут у меня вопрос. А спецоперация — это как понимать?
Это когда цели ведут к миру. Мы не атакуем жилых домов, мы не бьем по мирным гражданам, мы не уничтожаем социальную инфраструктуру, детские сады, школы, водоканалы, подстанции. Мы принуждаем к миру Украину, не допускаем развития ее военного потенциала, уничтожаем глобальную угрозу, которая может возникнуть для нашей страны, для наших новых союзников в виде Луганской и Донецкой республик.
Ну, теперь-то ты понимаешь, что настоящая спецоперация заканчивает события, начатые еще много лет назад.
Начатые не нами войны.
Да, но мне сложно это понять. Но теперь я хотя бы начинаю видеть логику.
This is super professional. Just look at the studio, how everything is prepared. This didn't happen overnight. To prepare the programs, to prepare the communication, to prepare, and just think like how much time it takes to do something in the Ministry of Education. So this was long time prepared, and now they are implementing it because they knew that this will be a problem. They are creating this information blockade, so citizens of Russia would not understand what's actually happening, and they would just believe in this parallel universe that Russia is creating. I think it's a very desperate move to deceive children, and everyone who will see this in the West, everyone will agree that this is just crazy. This should never happen.
In the Baltic States, it's been possible for some time now to take TV stations off the air when they're seen as a military threat. In recent weeks, the 8 most prominent Russian stations have been blocked because of inflammatory statements about Ukraine and because of war propaganda. The Radio and Television Commission of Lithuania is meeting today to discuss the 9th Russian TV station.
Уважаемые граждане России, Дорогие друзья, сегодня вновь считаю необходимым вернуться к трагическим событиям, происходящим на Донбассе, и ключевым вопросам обеспечения безопасности самой России. Имея в виду расширение блока НАТО на восток, приближение его военной инфраструктуры к российским границам.
Komisijos administracija jau užfiksavo labai daug. Taigi atsižvelgiant į tai darytina išvada, kad televizijos programoje MIR nustatyti pažeidimai akivaizdžiai, rimtai ir sunkiai pažeidžia įstatymo 19 straipsnio pirmos dalies reikalavimus, tai yra skleidžia karo propagandą ir kurstomas karas. Komisija nusprendžia sustabdyti Lietuvos Respublikoje retransliuojamos ir ar platinamos internete televizijos programos MIR laisvą priėmimą 5 metams nuo sprendimo įsigaliojimo dienos. Kas už šį sprendimo projektą, prašau balsuoti. Vienbalsiai, ačiū labai. Taigi televizijos programa MIR Lietuvos Respublikoje sustabdyta. Ačiū labai komisijos nariams ir geros dienos, gerų ateities planų ir darbų.
Why is this TV station, why is it banned?
Just because of the situation in Ukraine, we are showing propaganda to Lithuania. That's why. You know, the situation in Ukraine is pretty tough. So we need to keep our minds of our citizens a little bit healthier. Because they are actually directly asking to go fight or, stuff like that.
Maybe a few years ago, the European Union would look different at a committee like your committee than they do now, right?
Yeah, I hope so, yeah. I would love that they could pay attention earlier. And as often, even politicians from Lithuania and all Baltic countries, they tried often to say, keep watching much more deeper to what is happening in Russia. And it was all for information war too. But we Europeans are so kind, so correct that we are afraid, to go too fast, too far, And now
happened what happened.
Yes, it helps perhaps for the Western countries, for the Western democratic countries, to realize, the whole damage they are doing, and it was much easier now, even for European Union and even for YouTube or ban Russian propaganda.
Yeah,
because before it was unimaginable how in our democratic and free speech Europe we can ban some TV station. Now it seems that there is no question that we have to do, because this kind of weapon that they are attacking us. So the war in Ukraine helped for us also Europeans and even with long tradition of democracy to understand that it's necessary. It's not the banning of the free speech, but the banning of brainwash.
Russia sees this differently,
Добрый вечер.
and by now has blocked all Western news stations.
Алло, добрый вечер.
Hardly any information from the West enters the country anymore. Lithuanian civilians are involved in the crisis in Ukraine in several ways. For them, convincing the Russians of a different reality is an essential part of the war.
Алло. Добрый вечер. Алло, добрый вечер. Это вам звонит Гедрюс. Я вам звоню с Вильнюса, с Литвы. Можете говорить?
Giedrius is one of many Lithuanians who use the Call Russia app to make contact with Russians to tell them how he sees the situation in Ukraine.
One more. Алло, добрый вечер. Вы слышите меня? Слушаю. Да, вы слышите меня? Алло. Слушаю. Добрый вечер. Вы слышите меня? Слушаю. Добрый вечер. Вы слышите меня?
Номер не отвечает. Оставьте сообщение на автоответчик.
One more. Добрый вечер. Вы слышите меня?
Да.
Алло. Меня зовут Гедрюс, я доброволец. Я вам звоню из Литвы, из Вильнюса. Я участвую в программе, которая звучит так, что «Позвони простым людям в Россию». Я простой парень, и как бы моя как бы такая мечта есть позвонить людям в Россию, поговорить, знают ли они то, что происходит на этот момент в Украине.
Знаете, мне как бы политика вообще не важна.
Но...
Я не интересуюсь этим.
Так вы какую-то дозу информации можете получить, что там теперь происходит?
На Украине?
Да, на Украине.
Ну, военные действия.
Угу.
Что еще?
Угу.
Больше ничего не знаю.
ТикТоком пользуешься?
Да.
Окей. А там видео про войну тебе удалось что-то видеть или ничего нет в твоем окружении?
Ну, сейчас это особо там блокируют, так что уже нет.
Окей. А ребята не боятся, что призовут в армию их в этом...
Нет, срочников не призывают на военные операции.
А ты знаешь, что срочники теперь участвуют в боях в Украине и погибают? Там есть множество лиц, которые...
Нет, это все фейк. Я сам слышал, я знаю, что это невозможно, это все фейк. У меня братья все сейчас служат, и я им звоню, и они тоже, боятся как бы тоже то, что правят, но они сами, им командиры тоже говорят, что это все неправда, и срочников не могут отправить.
Так там уже очевидные списки, которые есть с ребятами, там тысячами, там больше 10 тысяч уже убитых ребят, которые погибли, как мясо в Украине, под городами.
Так выражаться, конечно, тоже не стоит.
Ну нет.
Можно вам тоже вопрос?
Да, конечно.
Зачем вы интересуетесь, зачем вы пудрите себе голову этим? Вы вообще живете в другой стране, и это вас вообще никак не касается. Для чего вот этого делать?
Знаете, я не думаю, что нас не касается, потому что я думаю, что то, что совершила Россия на этот момент, нападение на независимую страну, которая там имела выбранное свои управления, которая имела свое руководство демократически выбрано, но это просто такой теракт, и я понимаю, что если на это закрыть глаза, то Бог знает, что будет дальше.
Не знаю, даже не особо интересуюсь политикой.
Я вообще очень рад, что ты со мной говоришь.
Я хотел на первой минуте посмотрел какой-то номер, я думал, нафиг, как это хотел сбросить.
Не, ты молодец, я очень тебе благодарен, что ты вообще со мной говоришь, и вот как бы сперва не хотел, а потом стали разговаривать, и я как понимаю, ты молодой, умный человек, и, наверное, прекрасно понимаешь, что там, войны не надо.
Во-первых, это, я как уже повторял, мы ничего не можем с этим делать. Мы что, куда-то пойдем, санкции, что-то там вот это митинги устраивать. Мы ничего этим не добьемся, нас просто домиками забьют, грубо говоря, или посадят в КПЗ.
А вы этого боитесь, да?
Высшим людям, как бы высшим людям надо это решить.
А ты думаешь, что высшие люди... Хорошего вечера, всего.
Давайте, вам тоже.
It's my weapon. Today is my weapon, yeah.
Do you think you changed something by this conversation in his mind?
I hope yes. I want to change. I understand that it's not really to change now in this moment. But if I change something in his mind, something about the information, about the Ukraine, about the people in Ukraine, it's good. It's a good point.
The warriors of debunk have also found a way to use truth as a weapon. Besides dismantling disinformation, they address students to tell them what disinformation is and how to recognize it. Because of the invasion, this lesson is now broadcast nationwide. That is their way of fighting on the front line of the information war.
Garsas.
Tai gerai, tai jūs būsit viena, viskas čia veikia.
All of a sudden, I forgot what I'm about to say, but it's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
Are you nervous?
No, why would you think that? No. Why would you think I'm nervous? I'm not nervous. Not at all. That's completely natural to me. But no, for the good cause, I can sacrifice an hour of anxiety.
And what is the good cause?
The Ministry of Education approached us last week with a request to make this media literacy material because the teachers were getting anxious because the kids were starting to discuss the war in Ukraine and as a preventative measure to protect them from disinformation. And there was no ready prepared material to be distributed for the kids, just very practical things, how they can protect themselves from disinformation online. Aš turiu buteliukas tas mano, jeigu galėtumėt paduoti, ačiū. In my opinion, this should have been done years ago, this sort of initiative, but I'm really glad it's happening now. O kur man žiūrėti?
Jūs žiūrėkit į ekraną.
Į ekraną, gerai. Why am I here? My palms are sweaty. Mom's spaghetti.
You just give them a sign that this part I want to redo, and then you start again with that part.
Tai sveiki atvykę į nacionalinę atsparumo dezinformacijai pamoką. Šiandien pabandysime išsiaiškinti, kas yra dezinformacija, kaip ji veikia, kaip ji sklinda, na ir svarbiausia, kaip nuo jos apsisaugoti. Tai trumpai panagrinėkime vieną iš Minfo straipsnių. Pirmiausia, pasižiūrėkime į antraštę. Rašoma apie nusikaltimą prieš ES žmonės, minima garsi pavardė von der Leyen, Europos komisijos vadovės ir farmacijos milžinė Pfizer, bei didelė pinigų suma. Visų pirma, autorius čia nenurodytas, tiesiog parašyta Minfo ta informacija, tai yra jau toks signalas.
Ačiū. Nu kaip? Yra jėgų?
37.
Rašoma apie nusikaltimą.
So Katarina, we saw the big show, the big Russian show. Is this our answer?
I wouldn't compare these two things, because the aim and the audience and the message is completely different. Of course, you can always get bigger production and you can get bigger, maybe somebody is like famous, not me, like an influencer speaking about like the dangers of disinformation. But I think as a first step, it's already really important.
Yeah, but it looks like they're more like Russia.
Oh yeah, they have more money. Oh, for sure they have more money on things like that. Their budgets for disinformation are insane. For state TV, for RT gets massive budgets. I cannot get the number from the top of my head, but it's in millions and millions of dollars. Of course, they put a lot of money and a lot of effort into producing disinformation.
But on the whole, do you think we're investing enough in defending us against these big productions?
I don't think, in my personal opinion, I think there's more talk now than actual action. Yeah.
And what would actual action be?
Yeah, just as you said, there are really well-established narratives with Kremlin propaganda specifically, but there are not enough counter-narratives and not enough ways to communicate the counter-narratives. So I think that would be one of the first steps of answering, actually putting in the effort of having the counter-narratives ready and then communicating them.
So we should fight back more.
Yeah, for sure. But also use more ethical and more, you have to fight back with truth,
Pabandžiau ausinių kompo ir vis tiek man nelabai veikia.
Fabio, do you have the Edurom?
No.
No, okay.
I never
no
see it.
worries. I will. We all Here we live with this looming threat of Russia, the whole existence of Lithuania, basically, and because we have these bitter historical lessons, these memories of all the wrong things that were done to our country, we cannot help but think, okay, well, if we're not next, then we're the third. But we are in line, and we are close in that line. And yeah, that's really, really scary to think.
We have a lot of
And Kaliningrad is so close,
yeah,
and there's so much stuff in there.
Yeah, so it's like it's absolutely around us. So why shouldn't we be next? It's very easy, just to cut off. Yeah. Of course, we're NATO, so we're maybe more secured, but you know, you're also watching all those things happening with NATO, and it's not always that all NATO countries are so united for taking some actions, so you never know how it will be, you know, when the invasion would take place in Lithuania. So would they be so united? They will be more united, or they won't be so much united and say, oh, look, Estonia is just 1 million people, just give it away to Russia, no problem, we don't want problems.
Would you also say that if your worst fear materializes, you're preparing to fight back?
Oh yeah. I think also for me personally, I know that if it would come to worst, I would not run, because yeah, what's the point, to be honest? Like if I would run knowingly that there might not be a place for me to come back, no, I think I would stay.
You can take Lithuania, you can conquer it, but you will not keep it. So like everybody would fight, everybody would go to forest, and it could fight for years. So it's like we're going to be a pain in their ass if they will attack us. So even if they, you know, they will finish this attack successfully, and you know they will be completely military around us, we will still not keep it like that. And you know, one thing that I'm scared of personally, I know that I'm on their list. So if they will be here and they will win the war with Lithuania, so I'm sure that I will be on that train to Siberia, like my grandmother was, and like my grandfather was, and he died there in those concentration camps, yes.
Why are you on their list?
Yeah, because I'm against them. So they will definitely destroy everyone who is against them. And the frontliners will be dead first.
So you're the frontliner now?
I'm sure I am. Yeah, my father was, and I think I am, so.
Šiandien geriau nei bet kada suprantame, kad laisvę reikia ginti kasdien. Esame drauge su Ukrainos kariuomenė ir tauta, patiriančia nuožmiausią puolimą istorijoje nuo Antrojo pasaulinio karo. Laisvė šviečia čia Lietuvoje, o dar ryškiau ji šviečia Ukrainoje. Šios šalies žmonės įkvėpia mus visus. Blogio, melo imperija sugrius. Tai tik laiko klausimas.